Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Case, which is a podcast where global leaders from Harvard Business School's OPM community join in a personal capacity and they share the real decisions, life lessons, mental models that go behind building enduring companies. My guest today is Ankit Gupta, who's from Harvard Business School OPM. He's also from the most prestigious institute in India, IIM Ahmedabad, that he studied at. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Ankit. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Sohan. All good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah. Ankit, do you just want to take a moment to introduce yourself and your business and help us understand what you do?
Yeah, perfect. So, just to give you context, I am, as you said, alumni of Harvard Business School, UCLA, and I'm Ahmedabad, an engineer and then an MBA. We are a diversified business by the name of Holostik Group. Our flagship company is Holostik India, where we're doing anti-counterfeiting solutions. So, products like holograms, security labels, degrees, sheet checkbooks. Then we do traceability solutions for the supply chain. But then we have a company called Nature Trust where we're doing compostable packaging. Then we have a company called United Multichem and a brand called Cam Veda where we're doing aroma chemicals and aroma products. And Absolutely Pure is the biggest USP, absolutely no adulteration in that product. And then we're doing real estate. We're developing to lease. But the intent is to create a Plan B, a diversified model, a risk-free model for the family and the group on the real estate side. So fundamentally into three businesses: packaging, chemicals, and real estate.
Great. You've been a hands on entrepreneur. So, growing up, what did business look like at home for you? I believe your company was started by your father. Is that correct?
Right. So the flagship company was started by my father. He was the founder, and growing up, I've always grown up around those conversations of setting up a new business or setting up businesses or expanding the business on the breakfast table, on the lunch and the dinner table. So definitely grown up in that environment. Grown up in an environment where ethics was extremely important, and that was my dad as an individual, and so that is a fundamental ethos of us as a group and me as an individual, that whatever we do, we want to do it the right way. Obviously, when somebody is in business, he's in business to make money, but the money made in the right fashion, using the right principles in business, which is very, very critical and important for us.
Very nice. And what were some of the conversations that were shared over dinner tables at home, when you'd sit with your father or your parents and talk about professional aspirations? And what kind of expectations came along with stepping into the legacy that your father's created?
So in lot of expectations, it's never an easy task, I believe, as a second gen or third gen or any generation to step into your parents' shoes, so to say, whenever you get into that business. And for us also, it was not a smooth ride. It wasn't something which just happened overnight. I kind of got involved with the business. It was actually a very interesting journey because I got involved with the business, realized very quickly within the first 6 months that my dad and his team had a very set way of operating. So kind of took a step back, said, okay, let me do my own thing, started a separate office, started my own businesses, grew that, exited one of the hospitality business where I successfully grew it and then sold it. Then got into real estate, got into a bunch of chemical business, all of that. And constantly I was advising my core flagship business, right? And it was only around, actually, that's where Harvard Business School and OPM really played a big role, because that is the time I was actually questioning myself. I was questioning that, okay, is it me that I don't get the business, or is it them who are not understanding what I'm trying to make them understand? Right. So the whole aspect of change management and the questioning and the queries, OPM gave me that confidence at that time. Okay, what I'm thinking is maybe right, is absolutely actually right. And I just need to jump into the business. I can't act as a consultant to my business. Right. So that is, I still remember that day in the dorm where I told myself, okay, I'm going to get into the business now, in the flagship business, and I'm going to change it for the good. And touch wood, we've been able to do that over the last decade very beautifully. We've been able to transform the business. I think anybody and everybody who knows us in our industry knows that about us and knows that about me, that this guy is here to stay. This guy is here to perform and deliver, and he is willing to take public challenges and willing to work towards it.
And what led you to OPM?
Constant learning. So I'm an insane believer of learning. I believe in constant learning and unlearning, both. That said, you have to keep upping your game. You have to, I believe, for anything, there are two ways to learn, right? One is you go to classes like the OPM or any batch like that, or you learn on the go when you're working. Anybody who wants to really scale up the business faster than the standard growth rate will have to do both. Will have to do both. You can't just say that, okay, I'm not designed for some kind of classes or reading books or XYZ, or somebody says that, okay, I could just work or learn when I'm working. True, but I believe that it's a combination of smart and hard work. So for you to be smarter, you need to keep learning. And hence that temptation of getting into OPM. And obviously the Harvard branding, who doesn't love it?
You mentioned how OPM helped you look at your business differently from being, having an approach as a consultant to really owning the narrative and feeling like you have skin in the game, so you have to take control. Were there any other takeaways from OPM that you still find yourself revisiting, or any cases or professors that left a big impression on you?
I would say negotiation. Deepak Malhotra, Professor Malhotra, the whole concept of negotiation, the way he taught us, really is something which I use, I think, on a daily basis. Even right now, as a matter of fact, just before we're doing this, I was in a negotiation and I was using the same principle. Don't talk about one parameter individually, right? So talk about the whole bucket of parameters which you're discussing. And the other gentleman just could not get it. He's like, no, let's discuss this first. I said, no, let's discuss it together. What is the transaction? What are you looking at? What are the different parameters? All of that. What is it that you're not willing to do? What is it that you truly want? So I think the whole concept which the Professor Malhotra taught us works beautifully. And the return on investment on just that one class in itself has been maybe 1,000%.
How long ago did you do OPM? Because everything seems so fresh in your mind. I did OPM Unit 1 just 3 months ago, and some of the things you said, I went like, oh, yeah, that's right. I've heard this before.
So I actually did it about 10 years ago. So, but something which whenever you have an aha moment, I think that sticks to you irrespective of when you've done it.
What do you think today is harder, earning credibility inside your organization, given you're a second generation leader, or outside it when you're in a business like yours?
See, it's always a combination. There's no one answer, right? But at the same time, I would say it's more difficult to earn credibility inside your organization. Because only once you have built the credibility inside your organization is when you're able to create that team. And only once you're able to create that team and you have people behind you and with you, is that you can build that credibility outside as an organization, as an individual, that, okay, this is somebody we can work with, this is somebody we can trust.
Okay. Now you mentioned, you're involved in diverse sectors today. Anti-counterfeiting. I believe you mentioned chemicals, real estate for the family as well. So how do you decide which of these verticals deserves your attention at a given instant?
So I'm an insane believer of planning. Personally, I believe in having an annual plan. So every year in the first week of January, I would sit down and chalk out my goals for the year. That is a very good starting point for me to really focus and be clear about where my energy should go. Secondly, I believe in sitting every month very consciously to chalk out anything and everything I have to do. Okay, so there would literally be anything and everything I have to do professionally in a couple of pages. Then I use the Pareto's principle 80-20 to actually highlight which are my priorities, right? So that will bring it down. So let's say from 150 item list to maybe a 20 item list, 30 item list. Then I'll use another level of Pareto's principle to bring it down to 6 items. And I'll just focus on those six because I know those six, if delivered well for the organization, can really create that more than 64% impact. And if I'm able to extend that to a 10 to 12 list, then I'm able to create 80% impact. And that acts as a very big compass for me whenever I'm doing anything and I'm seeing that, okay, I'm going crazy because running from one place to the other. I would literally pull out that piece of paper and tell myself, okay, is this where I'm putting my energy?
Now you're involved in multiple businesses. You founded one and exited that one as well. What's a leadership mistake that you're glad you made early on?
Not being scared of making mistakes, right? I think that's a learning. So basically, be willing to take that risk very quickly and learning from it and owning your mistake, owning your decision. I think that's a big thing which happens with a lot of us. We own the success, but we want to blame the mistake to somebody else. So a kind of own up to your decisions, I think, is one of the learnings which I had very quickly early on. And the second I started owning up to my decisions, I think things started to fall in place.
Now, as you scale a business, values often get tested. So how do you protect culture at your company while chasing growth?
Communicate, communicate, communicate. Right. So one, live by it, so that nobody ever can question what you're trying to say. So don't create a false narrative. Communicate it. So today, if you go to our offices or you go to any of our factories or anything, you'll actually see a cultural code of conduct. Right. And we live by it. As whenever somebody is getting onboarded at the first few days, he would be consciously talked about, he will be consciously told about it. This is what we believe in. When you're living those principles on a daily basis as an individual, that's the biggest example which can come across. And then it's a question of reinforcement by the other people around that person, right, in the team, to ensure that everybody understands in this organization, this is how we do things.
Apart from your father, can you name someone who's shaped your thinking as a leader the most?
Actually, there's a business coach in India by the name of Rahul Jain. And Sohin is laughing because he's heard that name quite a bit.
OPMers from Delhi mention him. It's not even, I had not heard about him till 3 months ago. Now I heard about him. And in my Bombay and India groups as well for OPM, everyone talks about Rahul Jain. But the three people who have spoken about him on the podcast are all three from Delhi.
Delhi.
Yeah.
So Rahul Jain definitely has shaped a lot of what I think today, and a lot of his principles of Honda's really work in the Indian context with the kind of culture or the kind of people we have around us. So that's really worked for me.
Got it. Okay. Tell us about one reality about family businesses and succession planning, where succession might look glamorous from the outside, but it can be messy internally. So, what is it that you believe people most misunderstand about succession planning in businesses?
I think the biggest mistake or the general misconception is that it can work in all cases. Sometimes it is not meant to be. So, as parents or the previous generation, they should kind of ensure and facilitate that process rather than ensure, or rather than forcing multiple people to be in the same business. And the other mantra which I've learned again from Professor Davis at OPM, John Davis of Family and Business, is communication is key, right? So the way you're communicating between your family members is extremely critical, and keeping that channel of communication on is extremely critical.
Is there a book that has influenced you that you'd like to talk to us about?
Very famous book, as a matter of fact, The Man Who Sold the Ferrari. I think it's a beautiful narration of life and how a person should think. Lately, another book which was a good learning book was Supremacy on AI. Right, it talks about the history of AI and how AI has evolved. So, if somebody wants to get a context of what it was and what it is and what are the ethical dilemmas, all these big names out there who are driving AI in the world today are asking themselves, it's a good book to read.
How has your definition of success changed over the years?
Success to me is living life on my own terms, right? Growing at the pace which I am comfortable with, not what others perceive or want me to be with, right? And defining the kind of debt equity ratio I'm comfortable with, the amount of time I'm able to spend with my family, how I spend my weekends. So it's obviously a combination of personal, professional. But inside the personal story, it's also a question of what is growth and how do you define growth. So you have to be comfortable in your own skin, is what I realize over
And
time.
Ankit, how would you define a wise man?
Somebody who is willing to look at the world from others' eyes, right? And he just doesn't want to say that, okay, the way I think is right. I would say that somebody who's in any conversation or any context willing to look at things from different perspectives and willing to acknowledge his or her mistakes.
If there's one lesson that leadership and legacy has taught you the hard way, what would it be?
The biggest mistake which I see in in general is that second generation or the next generation wants to acquire or possess all the assets of the previous generation, right? They want to enjoy the perks of it, born with the silver or golden spoon. What they don't want to do is the liability which is attached to it, and the liability is a responsibility. And liability is not just a loan or whatever liability in the true in that sense of the balance sheet. But in the balance sheet of succession, if the asset is the business or the assets, then the liability is the responsibility to manage it responsibly.
And if you could speak to a younger version of yourself, as a
Mm.
22-year-old Ankit, what would you tell him, knowing everything we know now?
Own up to your decisions, right? Don't blame people around you. Tell yourself that, okay, whatever decision I'm taking in my life, I am taking it and I will own up to it.
Great. Thank you, Ankit. That's all I have for you today. Appreciate you
Perfect.
participating. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a great episode for everyone to listen to.
Thank you, Sohan. Thank you. Thank you for having me and look forward to meeting you soon.
Likewise.